it's a nice night, beautiful outside. And we have no stranger who's with us. Somebody who's been with me for a long time, and certainly at the museum before. Last year he did a reading from the Baroque, excuse me, I was going to say Caravaggio, from Baroque. And this time he's come back with a wonderful ensemble of poetry and some great, very talented people. Of course, Richard has, just to give some of his credits, just a few, written the novel The Third Miracle. I mentioned Caravaggio, the play before, and Machiavelli. And he's currently teaching in the master's program playwriting at NYU. So, he's quite an accomplished person, and he still gives back. And I'm so thrilled that he likes to come here. To me, this is like home. I hope it's like home for you. I hope you enjoy yourselves this evening, because this is going to be, I hope this is enjoyable. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Richard if you come up. Richard Vetere.
This is my father's old neighborhood. He was born not far from here, walked these streets, so I always love coming back here, and I always love the West Village. So tonight we're going to be reading some of my poetry, and it's always fun to be able to read my poetry. And it's always smart of me to ask some really talented people to read with me. So I'm going to introduce them I'm going to introduce one, and then they will introduce the next reader, and then I'll finish up by reading. Mizuo Peck, I just directed her in a play at the Incubator Space. She's a wonderful actress. You saw her all in Night at the Museum. You'll recognize when she gets up here. She'll be reading some of my poetry, and you can catch her sometimes at Naked Angels, where we met, which is Tuesday Night Theater, which I'll be talking about a little more because Eric's here, who produces Tuesday Night Theater.
This first piece is called Skill.
So without any more, here's Mizuo Peck.
The other night on your living room floor, I was as naked as you were. I watched where your mouth was and where your hands went with the same scrutiny with which you watched mine. When it was over, I spent the moments wondering what extraordinary skill brought us exhausted halfway across the room from where we started to the sweaty embrace I found myself in. Last night in a dream, my ex-girlfriend stuck her pregnant stomach up against my chest, staring at me with accusing eyes. This could have been yours, they said, if you had developed some talent for love. Between talent and skill, I've searched for a balance. One being a feeling mixed with a driving perception, the other a sleight of hand practiced to perfection. In loving, it seems I have it, then I don't. On the page, it's never fully there. Exhausted by the weight of potential, I'd rather leave you than explain the difficulties. In my car, I'll drive through miles of darkness and space, locked between reflected light and passion, wondering how far the distance between the talent and skill, wondering how long it takes to master a natural ability. The next one is called In Reach. In reach is all that was once treasured. Nameless is that fear least often measured. In that place of neither death, star, or earth, where a life is valued more than its worth. Despite the years, much is left unlearned, harbored in twilight only to be returned, to a murky dawn etched on a lonely face, a tarnished remnant from an old embrace. And the last one I'll be reading today is The Moon in the Mirror. Half the world is lighting a fuse. The other half is invisible. Prophets say history is entering a new phase. Fanatics say the killing time is full. Corporations judge everything on the last quarter, but all she remembers is a crescent in the sky, the way its light falls on the quietness below, a look at her reflection before it disappears. The imagined are accidents within the dark, revolving around what they can never touch. A witness to the presence of something brilliant in the night, a woman recreating herself. Thank you. And now I will be introducing the talented Mr. Eric Goss, He is the creative associate at Naked Angels, a wonderful establishment that Richard.
So the first piece I'll be reading is In the House My Father Bought, My Mother Lives Alone. You have to see it to believe it. How when you subtract one person, another grows. Though my father painted every wall and every door and every room, he let go. I see myself in this conglomerate of memory 40 years earlier, racing in from the snow, running upstairs, hiding in my room, ignoring them, both cursing their complacency, disowning my brothers, wishing I'd be born to someone else, until I, too, grew older and loved the house. Now with a cup of tea at the window, I try and imagine 40 years from the day, amazed by a simple observation. It's the silence my father feared, that my mother revels in. The next piece is called When We First Met. When we first met, I wanted to give you my eyes, my teeth, my hands. I asked you to wear my fingers and learn my voice and memorize how my lips were shaped when silent. So you wore my eyes and my hands, and you found some reason to memorize my lips and learned what my voice sounded like without my fingers and my teeth. But when you left, you never gave any of it back. I hear you still wear my fingers and my eyes, my teeth and my hands. Are you a cannibal? Is there something religious going on here? And then next, I'm going to be reading lyrics from a play inspired by Mario Lanza's musical that Richie's writing. The first piece is called Hollywood Boulevard. I signed with the studio, and they tell me who I am. Drop the weight, fatty. It's a game. It's a sham. I jump rope, dance all day. I'm a star on the big screen. I'm always somebody I ain't. How'd I get in this dream? I played Caruso and got raves. My mom said, it's your destiny. Got the kinks out of my hair, but it all got the best of me. Back on Mercy Street, my father drove a truck. All my friends died young. Somehow I got the luck. My wife pops pills to sleep. My manager hasn't a clue. I'm driving down Hollywood Boulevard, being told what to do. The next is Dark Side of Vegas. You got movie stars and desert, cocktails and neon lights, blondes to lean on, and something dark besides the night. You got blackjack and slots, lonely Marys and gambling Joes, souls that go rambling to where nobody knows. This is no place for an angel. The heat will melt your wings. Honey, I've seen it all before. This guy here only 'cause he sings. And the last piece I'll be reading is Long Love, Love Lost. Got you in my heart, but I have to let you go. Laughs bring me to another room, but when I look up, it's the same old moon. Left you in another city, telling you I won't forget. Strange smiles remind me what's wrong as lies get me through another song. I should have left you years ago, telling you it won't work out. Instead of you being a shadow in my day that can't leave and can't ever stay. So the next reader is a young lady who's going to be appearing in a film called Girls Who Smoke that is going to be premiered shortly and then tour around the independent film circuit. So next up is Lauren Lockwood.
When she left me, I paced the floor like a madman. I hugged the walls and cried like a baby. I tore the shelves of books apart, throwing them across the room in fits of anger and rage. When she left me, I lived like a dying man on the phone, listening to it ring, until I fell asleep with the sun rising white in the sky outside my window. When she left me, I held a loaded gun in my hand, fantasizing how she would react to the news of my brains being crosswise in the front door, and her photograph hanging innocently above, on the wall above my desk. When she left me, I felt the pain the terminally ill talk about. Jumping out of bed every 5 minutes of sleep, wondering if the agony will ever go away. When she left me, I felt as if every living relative and every close friend had just died an awful death, leaving me sole heir to the land struck by drought. When she left me, I felt the terrible wrath of the gods displeased at me for some heinous crime that I had committed. My life, from that moment until forever, has become an offering in the name of love. That's it. I only have one to read for tonight. I'd like to take the opportunity to invite Richard
most
Vetere back up
magazines
here.
the last 20, 25 years in England, here, I can't remember where, but Human Sacrifice was in obits over in London. And I'm going to read some poems that have not been published yet. This one is called The Other Colors in a Snowstorm. Orange is a lit window in the dark, or a rooftop on the other side of the sky. The colorless sound of a dog's bark, or an oriole on a branch before it flies. There's a fireplace glowing on the hill where imagined strangers sit around and talk. I was one of them once, a long time ago, standing at an open door, watching it snow. Blue is the snow on the fields at night and the cars on the highways passing by, and the color of your eye when a flash on a light and the moon rising in the sky. I never see much red in the winter months, except for the sun rising above my head. Can you feel the wind as you dream? Does it matter what all the colors mean? White is the darkness that never goes away, stretching to the horizon in the middle of the night. Pause. Sorry. This will take a few minutes, I hope. White is the darkness that never goes away, stretching to the horizon in the middle of the night. White is the glare of 1,000 years of day, burning with the illusion of a warm, lingering light. I remember you laughing as we lay in the snow, helpless as the world tilted for an afternoon. What are the other colors in a snowstorm? What moments do we choose to shed or to mourn? The rainbow lies and lives in a driving wind, though everyone else is tucked away safe inside. You were once right here, where it all began, waiting for your clothes as they dried. I wonder who else sees only the snow, blasting through the heavy, hungry air. What separated you from me and everything else? Where do all the colors go after all the colors melt? Okay, so this is called The Romance of Betty Boop. What do I do with you, Betty Boop? Do I take you to the movies or the park? Ride down to the beach after dark? Do I tell you how I long for romance and how love only happens by circumstance? Do I smooth back those short, funny curls, so different from all the other girls? Do I buy you a new dress and make you a star? Carve I love you in the neighborhood bar? Pretend you were a princess from the past who has found her prince at long last. Olive oil had her Popeye. She knew what was essential. Not spiked heels or perfect lips, but a can of spinach with potential. What do I do for you, Betty Boop? You and me and you, boo-boopy-doo. This is called Screenwriter Blues. Writing a screenplay is like living in hell. My apartment is buried in scripts I can't sell. I still owe the Writers Guild monthly dues. My agent couldn't get me any interviews. I got the Screenwriter Blues. The studios spend millions on trash. What happened to the days of movies like MASH? My agent won't return my phone calls. He's got me by my writer's overall. I got the Screenwriter Blues. I feel so funny not making any money. I know it's not the American way. But Bogey's dead and Serpico fled and producers want to defer your pay. My last movie grossed millions, Variety stated, but the producers never paid me a dime. I think they're made of mud and slime. My agent won't return my phone calls. He's got me by my writer's overalls. I got the Screenwriter Blues. In 1976, my cousin, little guy, died of an overdose of heroin. Lived in Williamsburg. And one summer, that summer, one afternoon, I decided to write a sestina. And I don't know if you know the form, but it's, you pick a word, 6 words actually, and you write down 6 lines. And then you change them, where the first one becomes the second line, and the last line becomes the first. So I wrote this poem called Sestina. I think it was 1974. A building near the sea grows large over the water. Water runs wild and swells miles out at sea. Sea-like skies drift high over beaches. Beaches stretch for years like deserts under the sun. Sun-like eyes grow dark in the shadows. Shadows fall beneath the building like mountains. An arm in the dark is white like a mountain, where a lamp's light falls and scatters like water, and hides in a room your face in a shadow, tired in the dark, miles under the sea. Behind the curtain crawls the heat of the sun, away from the empty wall that cages desert beaches. Up from the floor, eyes open like beaches, staring from the buildings, darkness and mountains. Out from the clouds, caught by the sun, into the needle goes life, air, and water. Water wets blood wetter than the sea. Opened in love, an arm warm to the shadows. She lies in your arms, half hid by shadows. Her body is salt and white as the beaches. Her mouth breathes air, wetness in the sea, as her hands fold high and rise up like mountains. Nothing in the room says you're in water, but the way light filters in from the sun. The rooftop is wild with wind and sun. As your voice runs up and over the shadows, you let out a scream, like a whisper of water, afraid of the moon's endless stretch of beaches. Today, you give your sight to the buildings and mountains, and stretch your body out like the tides of the sea. Water runs wild and swells miles out to sea. Beaches stretch for years like deserts under the sun. Shadows fall beneath the building like mountains. Sun-like eyes grow dark in the shadows. Sea-like skies drift high over beaches. A building near the sea grows large over the water. Tomorrow, you'll fall against her cellar door like water. Tired in your eyes, you'll find in the shadows mountains that loom large under the sea. Little did I know back then that I would spend so much time in the theater. But I did write this poem about the theater, I think. It's about the theater. And it's in both books, though I can't find it. It's called, well, this has an index. It's called A Stage Somewhere Set. Page 9. There's a stage somewhere set with the warmth of faceless mannequins. And I, at times, visit the stage to find some coherence in its music and its sound. And as the crowd arrives before the intermission of the first act, I climb the stage and paint the eyes, on every faceless mannequin. And if there's time, I kiss each face to remove the emptiness where lips should be. Yet one night somewhere in the backward piercing, I was drawn past the music and the sound, where an ugly delay would have dried the wetness that formed at the tips of my fingers and my lips. And I found that I'm the accident of life with the movements and the limbs, the cooler response, the embedded tongue that seeks the inconsistent wonder of all that is living and violently blood. For somewhere that night between the stage and the crowd, somewhere past in the backward piercing, I saw myself a mannequin, awaiting the intermission of the first act, where every man born scared and lonely is voiceless to the music and the sound. I was trying to come up with a title for my selected poems, and I couldn't. So I decided to call it I decided to write a poem called The Rest of My Life. Right, because all the poems are up to now. So I was thinking I should have some years left. So I called it The Rest of My Life. It starts right here, or so I imagine it does. Somewhere between the ice storms and heat waves, as lifelong friends, mostly dead and buried, do sing-alongs at parties held in my head. Naps bring me the most vivid images, of women mostly, my mother, long ago girlfriends. Sometimes my brothers make an appearance in the old house. We're young, jumping around, talking a mile a minute, doing things we never did. As real as just now, and in minute detail, exploding across the screen. Human beings like to create start and finish lines, just so they can stick a price tag on time spent. But they are arbitrary and never last long. What does have meaning is the rest of it, facing us like a bowl of pasta. It all tasted great, the sauce, the meatballs, and the Parmesan cheese. But you left some, and you don't know why. I should end there. Thanks. Yeah, sure. The lady in the front row.
When did you begin to write poetry, and why?
That's a really good question. Okay, I could tell this story. Because yeah, my friends in grammar school remember. There was a cute little girl sitting next to me in 5th grade. And her name was June Aurora, so we've been trying to find her, some of my friends at grammar school. Because we don't know what happened to her. She disappeared, she doesn't come to any of the reunions. And I guess it was 5th grade, I don't know how old you are. So she showed me, I wrote her a love letter. And she said, "I'm sorry, I have a boyfriend." But it gets better. He was actually a soldier in Vietnam.
Wow.
So he was about 3 years older than her. She was 14, 13, 14.
Later than 5th grade.
That'd be 7th grade. That's 7th grade.
I'm bad with numbers. But it was grammar school. So
No, it's not.
No, it was
It was
grammar
like
school.
middle school.
No, she was 13. She was 13.
She was not junior high.
Yeah.
Junior high.
We didn't have junior
So
high.
then he was about 17 then.
Yeah, he was 17. And
Everyone's doing the math, so let's figure it out.
But he wrote a poem to her, and she showed me the poem. And for some reason, I ran home that night and wrote a poem about my friend's father who had landed on Normandy Beach, called 40 Years Ago Today. So I wrote the poem and gave it to her, and she gave it to the nun who read it and then paraded me through the entire school as the poet.
Wait, excuse me, what school did you go to?
I went to St. Stanislaus in Maspeth, Queens.
Okay, okay.
So I wrote my first poem and I framed it. I think it's fallen apart now. But it's never been published, but it's about me landing on Normandy Beach. So that's where it started. And then every time I saw a sunset, I had to run and write a poem. And then I remember the horrifying moment when I told my father I wanted to be a poet. Italian American family. He was like, I wanted to go to the moon when I was young. What do you mean you want to be a poet? You gotta give that up. But I never did. So that was a good question. Yes?
You mentioned you were going to be writing a play about Mario Lanza, or?
Yes. Phil Ramone and Sonny Grasso hired me to write the book to a musical. We did it one night at the Tilla Center. We just did it in the University of Miami.
Oh.
And it's about Mario Lanza. It's called Lanza.
And we could see it where?
Hopefully one of these days in New York City. I'm sorry, there's no specific time.
Okay.
We almost did it at the York Theater, and that still might happen.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And I wrote the
Great.
book to it. And
I'll
it's
look at the book.
it's original music. There are two songs, you know, because.
Richie,
Yeah.
explain what a book is.
Oh, a book is the play. And I didn't write the music and I didn't write the lyrics. There's Lanza's Because You're Mine. And the other big one is, what's his other big hit?
Be My Love.
Be My Love.
Be My Love.
Both of them, Sammy Kahn wrote the lyrics. And we have some original music. So it was done at University of Miami. The 700-seat theater was gorgeous. I can't wait to do it.
So
Yes,
did you have play Mario Lanza?
Well, that's the big problem. The problem
The
is,
question I have, as a
We all went,
creative
right?
person, you gave us two examples. Your first love was one inspiration. How you got to the beach at the invasion, I don't know, from your first love. Could you tell us a little about that? I mean, if you're in love with somebody, you go home and write a poem about a battle.
well, yeah. It seems I do believe there are themes for artists, especially writers, and I write about war. My play One Shot, One Kill was nominated for a Pulitzer when it was done at primary stages, and that's about the training of a Marine sniper. So we just did a reading at 29th Street Theater. I read about war and women, painters, priests, birds. My new children's play was just published called Bird Rain, about a sparrow in New York City.
That's beautiful.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I do see themes resonating.
In other words, that's just what you felt at the time. See, I'm intrigued with the creative process, whether it be music, whether it be literature, because my father was a shoe designer, and he slept with a pad next to his bed, because his greatest inspirations came during the night.
Mine come all the time, I would say.
I beg your pardon?
Mine come all the time, so I'm gonna say just like the creative mind is what I've learned, and really you just write, and then you need other people to tell you what it's about. Good friends, people close to me will see a play of mine and say, well, that's about you. And I would go, what? And I think it's all about the subconscious. It's like riding a bicycle. You don't think about what it means, but when I'm writing it, it's usually about me. Most of the time, unless it's for hire.
Yeah, I've heard also other creative pieces, it's like a different force takes over and something comes out.
Yeah, and if you do it for a living for a long enough time, it's very hard to tell what's real and what's not. I know artists that I think the best writers I know are crazy in a way. They function
Yes,
really
they are.
well, but they have an uncanny ability to tap into myth, tap into an energy of imagery. I find it, and through character, I find it through character. I can't write anything unless it's about me, but you all know it's about me, and I won't even know it's about me. But that's how I stay with it. I wouldn't have been able to stay with, like Baroque, my novel. I wrote about Caravaggio. The only reason I started to write about Caravaggio is because when I was 22 and had my first play produced in New York, 23, something like that, my set designer said, you're in Caravaggio's painting. And I said, who am I? And he showed me the Calling of St. Matthew, and there I am. That photo I showed you before, there I am, the right-hand corner of that painting. And that's my face at 24 years old. So I wrote a poem about being Caravaggio's painting, and then I studied Caravaggio. And I saw we had a lot in common. He painted paintings that looked like little plays, and they were dramatic pieces. So years later, Helen Langdon wrote a book in 1999, and we know who that person is now, or at least she said. it's probably Caravaggio's roommate, Mario Minetti. So I wrote Baroque about Mario Minetti, and found out that someone else wrote a novel about him in the 1800s because he had such an interesting and fascinating life. So it all started with me being in this painting and me trying to write about what that meant, to finding that I had a lot of similarity with Caravaggio. You know, I felt he was a playwright painter, and I'm Catholic and he's Catholic, and I'm Italian American and he was Italian. So there was this stuff. And then I wrote a play about Machiavelli, and I didn't think I had anything to do with Machiavelli. Until a friend of mine came to see it and said, well, this is obviously about you.
Really?
And I said, well, that's really interesting. How do you see that? And he said, well, the way you deal with producers, with the Giuliano de Medici and Lorenzo de Medici, you had to deal with these producers. And I said, wow, I never thought about that. So even I have a comedy about two young hitmen called Gangster Peril. It's a parody of gangsters, you know, movies. And it's Joey and Louie. And a director said to me, well, obviously this is about you. And I said, what do you mean? Well, Louie is slick and commercial and gets his stuff done, and Joey is the poet. And I said, I never thought of that either. So that play was about me, dealing with me. So I think real interesting artists are always dealing with what's personal, and then hopefully it becomes culture. The Third Miracle, the same thing. I wasn't a priest, but I was an altar boy. And
What is that about?
it's about a priest investigating a statue crying tears of blood, and it's about sainthood and the ordinary process of canonization. Yeah, it's published by Simon & Schuster. It's a movie with Ed Harris and Ed Hesh. Coppola produced it. Yeah, you can get it on Netflix. I wrote the film and the book.
When was it done?
2000 was released.
A couple. What's the name of it?
The Third Miracle?
Oh, I'll look it up.
Yes, Simon & Schuster. If you get it, I'll autograph it because that's going
Thank you.
online
Good.
for $200-300. Yeah.
Where can we see, I would love to see Caravaggio and Baroque.
Well, it was just done in Italian in Rome. It was done in
That's a
Port
little
Eckley
far.
and Peppermint. And it was done in Chicago in English. I try, and I talked about this with Joe, and Joe's been, you know, great to me. It's hard to get Italian Americans to produce Italian American playwrights. I'm always saying that. It's like the two guys who produced it in Chicago were Muslim and gay.
Funny.
And the five investors in Machiavelli were white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. So if Italian Americans would support the intellectual, part of being an Italian American, we wouldn't be complaining about these stupid images of us in the media because nobody would really pay attention. They would go, Italian Americans are pretty intellectual. I mean, recently I just gave a talk where 4 or 5 of the 6 actors nominated for Tonys were Italian Americans, but Italian Americans didn't talk about that. So that seems to be, I think now that we're here 100 years, it's time to say, okay, we have a whole literature, a whole work based on being here. So that's why you haven't seen Caravaggio. I'm trying to get it done here. Yeah.
In your opinion, do you have a particular work that you consider your best?
Like when I read the New York Times obituary and wonder
No.
It kind of changes, but hopefully I haven't written the best of the stuff yet. But I feel like I'm more productive now than I've ever been, but I've always been prolific. The Third Miracle is kind of original, and so is Caravaggio. But they're both very similar. They're both about Catholicism and God and faith and love and art. One is art. Yeah, I think I had to give you
What's the most significant writing project you've started? What's the most significant writing project you've started but not been able to finish, and why?
A lot.
That's
Significant? Wow.
To you.
Yeah. Like what have I attempted and couldn't work out?
Well, whatever you want to, however you want to answer that. Something that you can't finish, and for some reason you can't seem to finish. You want to. Anything?
Good question. I go back over my work over years to rewrite it if I feel compelled, like it bothers me that it's not completed. So I started a new play which I've been reading in Naked Angels. I started 5 new plays actually in the last 2 years. So I don't think all of them are done yet. I wrote a play about Delmore Schwartz and James Agee called Poet on a String that I love, but I haven't been finished yet. I think it still needs some work. So that's a good question. I think it's probably somebody's going to have to tell me, you know, because if I'm compelled to do it, like I started a new play, I'll keep writing, and I'm writing a screenplay. And I got hired to write a new movie about stolen art in World War II. I got hired to write that, and I'm just finished with the screenplay, and we're just going to go out with it. Yeah, it's New York page, front-page Times story about the stolen art. It was fascinating. So, yeah.
Could you tell us about Naked Angels? What is
Oh,
that again?
Well, we all met there. It's a theater company that I don't know, Eric. What is the? It's a producing theater company.
Naked Angels is one of the premier new American playwrights companies.
There you go.
They did a show next fall that was on Broadway not too long ago, This Wide Night. But how we all met was the 3-level play developmental process. Our weekly playwriting series where we accept 10 pages of brand new material. We do cold readings where, you know, Richie will come in with new pages and he'll be like, Mizo, Eric, read this. And then we're up on stage, never read it before in our life, and you're up and you're doing it. And that's the first level. That's Tuesdays at 9. Then we have First Mondays, which is a full-length reading of a piece that's worked its way up through the ranks. And then finally, Angels in Progress, which is a full-length workshop production of one of the plays that's come up through the ranks of this 3-step process.
And it's a great place to meet really good actors
and really great writers.
And
So
see
where is
some
it located? Where is it located?
Well, Tuesdays at 9 is more a collective for the writer and the actor to hear their pieces that are brand new. Like, but last year I think we are located right now for our main stage productions at the Vineyard, where Outside Man, I can't remember who wrote it right now.
Not either. Right. And DR2, Darryl Roth's Theater 2 on East 15 in Union Square is where Tuesday nights is.
Oh.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's got a bar and very social.
And
It's fun.
First Mondays is there as well if you
Yes.
ever want to come and see. That's probably the one for the general public for people to see if you sign up on nakedangels.com. First Mondays, completely open to the public. We have one this Monday at 3:30. You go to the D2 and it's open for anybody and you see a full staged reading of a play that the company's working on.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Good.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
How do you phase yourself in and out of writing the plays? I mean, in different scopes of each enactment. I mean,
That's a really good question. too.
I
Most of the time, writers
Yeah.
are always writing.
Okay.
So I think ahead. Like if I'm going to write tomorrow for a few hours, I think ahead what I'm going to write, and then I'll write that stuff, and then it moves to the next thing. And then if I need to get to the screenplay, I'll take a quick break and put my head into that because it's totally different.
And it's easy for you to do that?
Yeah, I'm probably.
It's good to take a break,
Yeah.
right? It's good to take a break from
break,
one script
right.
to the other.
Yeah.
That's right.
Focus on other
Sometimes it took me a long time to give it up and say, nah, I'm not going to do that much. As you get older, it's like, I'll finish it tomorrow. I used
Oh,
to be
okay.
obsessed with trying to get it done. But I think you need to be patient and have time. And the fun part about teaching, like over at NYU, is that I get to talk about what I was weak at. You know, I agree with David Mamet. I think you teach to learn. So I was weak at plot. And I teach plot, and I'm really good at plot now. So I was weak at it. People used to love my characters and say, what's the story? And it's probably the most, it's the scariest word a writer could hear, a young writer, is, so what's the plot?
Okay.
Because that's the hard part. Anybody could just sit down and start to write a scene and say, oh, this is good, but you need to have a point. And that takes years to be able to do. And that's why, you know, writers who have stories that keep, yeah, it's storytelling. Yeah, well, we need a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that's the hard part. So I'm thinking now about my play that I need to finish the first act of my new play. And I've been thinking about getting to that scene, and I already started it in my head. So, yeah, then you put it down and then I'll get to the Act 2 the next day or the day after. But you're always thinking about it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Mario Fratti recently told me he never starts a play until he knows exactly how it's going to end. What's your attitude towards?
Sometimes you do know the ending, or you think you know the ending. I just had a world premiere of a new play in Gloucester, and I loved the ending. I wrote the ending. It was performed the way I wanted to. It was well directed, and I always saw that ending because it was like an O'Neill ending, like an O'Neill play. But I usually try to keep myself open to what the ending is going to be. I want to be surprised. And sometimes it's good. I never write the ending, but I do believe that it's, you think about it because you do have to end it. You know, but I like to be surprised.
That's good.
Yes.
So do the poet, playwright, and novelist in you all live peacefully together? No, or does one feel like you've shortchanged?
Yeah, you know, when I was about going to college, I found out we went to St. John's. I had a really close friend who said, "So you're a writer?" And I said, "No, don't call me a writer, I'm a poet." So I've become a playwright, and I've become an author, and on my taxes for the last several decades, it's been writer. So, yeah, I'm probably one of those people that's really strange. I'm a Writers Guild lifetime member. So I do write television and film, which is very different from theater, and very different, obviously, from novels, and definitely different from poetry.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Who was the professor who inspired you the most for writing?
I had a Dr. Iannucci. I won a
Okay.
poetry contest at
Okay,
St. John's.
St. John's.
Yeah, and he asked me to his office. He was the head of modern foreign languages. So every Thursday he would close his office for the
Dr.
afternoon
Iannucci, I
and
know
just
him.
talk to me. And I think young writers need that discussion of, you know, because I just gave a reading somewhere and we were talking about how young writers spend hours talking about writing. I don't talk about writing at all anymore. This is the most I talk about writing. Because most of the people I'm working with, I'm doing it with.
You're a doer.
Yeah, so, but it's so much fun to talk about, you know, because it's a lonely occupation. Though I don't mind the alone time, I just need to get out every night. I like, that's why I do some acting and directing. I don't like that isolation. I mean, there are writers that are really good that just like being
Isolated.
yeah, and there are writers that are extroverted, and I've been told many times I'm an extroverted writer. I'll talk about what I'm working on.
Which is good.
Yeah, I think so for me, but a lot of people don't like it. I'll talk all day if you grab you at night and go, I'm working on this play with you.
Let me ask you another thing. Would you ever change the ending of your
Yeah,
plot?
sure.
You
I
do?
changed the ending, yeah.
So speaking with the other people?
No.
Or no? This is
usually-
it's within yourself, the
Yeah,
scope of
unless you're in
yourself.
rehearsal and you find
Okay.
a moment, you know, you could be in rehearsal and I go, you know what, I didn't think I was gonna end with that poem now, but
Okay.
it just felt right, so sometimes it just feels right, but it doesn't mean it's right. Because I've
Okay.
directed my own plays, and I found that, listen to the playwright, if you think the playwright's good, because even though it might feel right there, there's another beat that may be there, and we'll find it as a director, because as a playwright, I would go to the playwright, I don't like your play, I'm the director, and it was me, it's my play, so I'm not fighting myself. But I learned to stay with the playwright.
You are so All right, 1, 2, 3.
No,
Let me check, let me check.
It didn't go
Didn't go
off.
up. I mean, I pressed it down, it doesn't go all the way down. There's something, try it again.
This is my,
I did press it down hard.
You try one last thing. That's, you can do that, that's
We
cool.
have one.
I got it. Look,
No, let me
that
just
flash,
flash
that's
it.
up.
I have a flash now.
No, but
Okay,
I
one
need to
more
get
time.
one. Carol, maybe you wanna do it. Jimmy, you wanna do it? You gotta stay right. Jimmy,
I have a,
put your
yeah,
fingers
well,
down like
I
this.
will see.
Get a hold of it.
Somebody get a good one with Brian.
Otherwise, Arthur, would you do it?
If I can't do this thing, he'll. All right, that's it.
I gotta move over.
I did, I pressed it down.
Martha, please.
I don't know. It'll be short there. I know. Because I pressed it.